Your dog refuses to eat the moment you walk out the door. You fill the bowl, you leave for work, and somehow, when you come back hours later, that food is still sitting there, untouched, exactly as you left it. At first, you assume he's just not hungry, or maybe he's being picky, but then it happens again tomorrow, and the day after that. A pattern forming, quietly, right under your nose. Most owners never question it. They shrug, they refill the bowl, they move on with their day. But something far deeper is happening inside that small, silent skull of his. Because what looks like a simple lack of appetite is actually one of the clearest emotional signals a dog can give a human being. And almost no one is listening to it. Scientists who study canine behavior have spent decades trying to understand why dogs, unlike most animals, link eating so tightly to emotional safety. The answer is more intimate than you'd expect. In the wild, eating is never a passive act. It's a vulnerable one. An animal with its head down in a bowl cannot watch the horizon, cannot guard the den, cannot protect what it loves. Domestication didn't erase that ancient wiring, it just rerouted it. Your dog no longer fears wolves or strangers in the dark. Now, the thing he fears losing is you. Researchers studying stress hormones in dogs have found that cortisol, the chemical released during anxiety, directly suppresses the urge to eat. Hunger gets pushed aside by something stronger, alertness. When you leave, your dog's nervous system doesn't simply register absence. It registers a disruption in the only social structure he understands completely. And that disruption changes his biology. This isn't a flaw in your dog. It's evidence of how deeply his brain has fused survival instinct with attachment to you. A bond far older and far stronger than hunger itself. You probably thought an empty house just made him bored, but boredom doesn't shut down appetite. Only real emotional stress does that, and only in animals capable of genuine attachment. The truth is quieter and heavier than boredom. Your dog isn't ignoring the food. His body is actively overriding hunger because part of his world just disappeared through that door. What this really reveals is trust turned inside out. A dog who eats freely around you feels safe enough to be vulnerable. Without you, that safety net momentarily vanishes. So that untouched bowl isn't rejection. It's a quiet form of devotion, proof that his sense of security is built around your presence more than around food itself. Notice how some dogs sniff the bowl, circle it once, then walk away without taking a single bite. It looks almost dismissive, like the food simply isn't appealing anymore. Owners often assume the dog is being fussy, or that the food has gone stale or lost its smell, so they switch brands, add toppings, try anything to spark interest. But behaviorists who study appetite loss in dogs note that this sniff and leave pattern is rarely about taste. It's a hypervigilance response, a brain too busy scanning for danger to register food. When a dog's amygdala, the brain's alarm center, stays activated by your absence, it temporarily quiets the hypothalamus, the region responsible for hunger signals. Vigilance simply wins the argument. That sniff isn't disinterest, it's information gathering. Your dog is checking whether his environment feels safe enough to lower his guard, and right now, it doesn't quite. This single small gesture says more about love than 100 excited tail wags ever could, because it shows a nervous system still anchored entirely to your return. Watch what happens the second you walk back through the door. Many dogs suddenly rush to the bowl and eat as if nothing strange happened at all. It's easy to read this as simple relief, like a child finally allowed to eat dinner after a long, boring wait. Convenient, but not quite the full story. In reality, your return triggers a hormonal shift. Cortisol drops, oxytocin rises, and the body's hunger systems flip back on almost instantly, like a switch reset by your presence. This means your dog's appetite is, quite literally, regulated by your proximity. Food becomes appealing again only once his brain decides the environment is emotionally safe once more. It's not manipulation, and it isn't theatrics. It's neurochemistry, responding to attachment, the same biological architecture that lets human infants calm down the instant a caregiver returns. When you see him finally eat after you walk in, you're witnessing his nervous system literally exhaling, recalibrating around the one signal it trusts most completely: you. Some owners notice their dog eats perfectly fine at daycare or at a friend's house, yet refuses food the moment he's left alone at home. This confuses almost everyone. The assumption is that the dog simply likes other environments more, or finds them more stimulating, more distracting, easier to ignore an empty stomach inside. But specialists in separation-related behavior explain something different. Distraction isn't the deciding factor here. Social buffering is. A nervous dog calms down around other calm bodies, human or canine. At daycare, surrounded by movement, noise, and company, his nervous system borrows safety from the group. Alone at home, there's no buffer left, only silence and absence. This tells us something profound. Your dog's hunger isn't really about location. It's about whether a social presence, any reassuring presence, exists nearby to soften the isolation. It's a quiet reminder that connection itself functions almost like nourishment for him, sometimes outweighing actual food, because emotional security is the deeper appetite being satisfied. You might also notice your dog eating slower than usual, taking long pauses, lifting his head toward the door between bites, almost rationing the meal carefully. It's tempting to think he's just savoring his food, enjoying it leisurely, perhaps even spoiled by routine. A peaceful image, but an incomplete one. In truth, that pausing behavior reflects a brain-splitting attention between two competing needs, eating and monitoring, unable to fully commit to either one safely. Each pause toward the door is a tiny vigilance check, a recalculation of risk, proof that part of him is still listening for the sound of your return. What feels like slow, casual eating is actually a careful balancing act, hunger negotiating space with watchfulness, never quite winning outright until reassurance arrives again. This slowness isn't laziness or pickiness at all. It's a small, constant act of guardianship, his body refusing to fully relax until he feels truly covered. Some dogs will drink water steadily while you're gone, but leave solid food completely untouched, almost as if thirst and hunger follow entirely different emotional rules. Owners often interpret this as simple preference, assuming the dog just wasn't that hungry to begin with, or that the kibble itself wasn't appetizing enough. Physiologically, though, stress suppresses appetite far more aggressively than it suppresses thirst. Hydration remains a near-automatic reflex, while eating requires a calmer, more settled nervous state. This gap between drinking and eating is a subtle biomarker, a way your dog's body quietly tells you how unsettled he feels, without you there to anchor him. It reframes something easy to miss. Thirst is survival on autopilot, but eating, for your dog, is intimacy. It requires the kind of safety that only you provide. Many owners notice their dog positions food bowls or beds closer to the front door over time, almost relocating his entire world toward the exit you used. It looks like restlessness, or perhaps confusion about where his things belong, an inconvenient habit some owners try to correct by moving the bowl back. Behavior specialists describe this as proximity seeking, an instinctive pull toward the last place your scent and presence were strongest, the doorway functioning like an emotional anchor point. Your dog isn't choosing the door over food. He's trying to stay close to the one variable that determines whether his world feels stable enough to relax. This single, often overlooked detail reveals just how spatially his love is wired, geography itself becoming an extension of attachment, the threshold a stand-in for you. There's also a deeper layer scientists describe as anticipatory cognition, your dog's brain attempting to predict your return based on subtle cues, like time, light, or sound. Many owners simply call this a sixth sense, joking that their dog somehow always knows when they're 5 minutes from home, as if reading their mind. In reality, dogs build internal timing systems from routine and environmental cues, a quiet form of forecasting that lets anxiety ease slightly as your return draws nearer. As that internal clock approaches the expected moment of reunion, cortisol begins to taper, and appetite occasionally returns even before you've physically opened the door. It isn't mind-reading, it's something arguably more touching, a relationship so consistent that your dog's biology has learned to trust your patterns almost like clockwork. All of these behaviors the untouched bowl, the cautious sniffing, the door-facing wait, point toward the same hidden truth. Food is never just food to your dog. It's a luxury his nervous system only permits once safety is confirmed, and right now, in your absence, you are the single largest variable in that equation. This is why scolding a dog for not eating while you're gone misses the point entirely. You're not dealing with stubbornness, you're witnessing love, expressed as vigilance. Every dog owner eventually has to reckon with this realization. Your presence isn't just comforting to your dog, it is, biologically, part of his survival architecture. That's an enormous responsibility, but also an enormous gift, because very few relationships in nature reach this level of trust between two entirely different species. Think about what it means that an animal capable of hunting, surviving, and thriving alone in the wild has voluntarily handed his sense of safety over to you. It isn't weakness. It's evolution, choosing connection as a survival strategy, proof that loyalty itself became biologically useful somewhere deep in the long history of dogs and humans. Every time your dog waits by the door instead of eating, he is quietly telling you that you matter more to his nervous system than food does. That kind of devotion rarely gets language. It gets expressed instead through small, easily missed behaviors most owners overlook, dismiss, or simply never think twice about. Once you understand this, you can't unsee it. The empty bowl stops looking like a problem and starts looking like a message, patient and constant, waiting to be understood. You start noticing the way his ears track the sound of your keys, the way his whole body softens the moment you cross the threshold back inside. You start to realize you're not just a caretaker refilling a bowl, you're the emotional center of an entire nervous system that quietly organizes itself around your presence. This shifts something in how you see your dog. He stops being simply a pet waiting for dinner and becomes something closer to a companion, fluent in your rhythms. And maybe that's the real lesson hidden inside something as ordinary as an untouched bowl of food. Love doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it waits quietly by the door. The next time you come home to find his food untouched, try not to see neglect or stubbornness. See a small heart that simply couldn't relax enough to eat without you. Try sitting with him for a moment before refilling that bowl. Let him feel you're truly back. Watch how quickly his body remembers it's safe to be hungry again. Dogs rarely get to explain themselves in words humans easily understand, but behaviors like this are their language, patient, consistent, and quietly waiting for someone to translate it. So the next time someone tells you, dogs don't feel deep emotional attachment, you'll know better. You've seen it, sitting untouched in a bowl, every single day. If this changed the way you see your own dog, you're not alone, and you're certainly not finished learning what he's been trying to tell you all along. There's always more hiding in the small, ordinary moments you share with him, more meaning behind behaviors you've walked past 1,000 times without noticing. If you want to keep uncovering what your dog has been silently communicating all along, stay close, stay curious, and maybe subscribe for the next hidden truth. Because somewhere in your home right now, he's listening for your footsteps, and that, more than any bowl of food, is the truest measure of his love.